Good evening. I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is 5:30 p.m. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, this meeting is officially open with a quorum present. I'd ask that you please stand as we recite the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. We'll be moving on to public hearing. Public hearing is now called to order. Just as an FYI, by the way, the two monitors, I believe, for the audience are not going to be working tonight. We hope to have those fixed for the next meeting. Ms. Shira, are you ready to give your report on this?
Yes.
Thank you.
In Child Nutrition Fund proposed for the 2019-2020 school year. at a public hearing that was published and held this evening. As you all know, the responsibilities of the board is one to, at least amongst others, to adopt the annual budget. And so we have been working on a budget for 1920 since October. And so we've put a lot of hours and a lot of time into this budget. In legislative years, it's even more difficult, and this was no exception. We have been working very earnestly through House Bill 3 so that we have some clearly defined revenue figures that we can be using in this budget. And so I appreciate the board's patience and feedback this budget year, so thank you for that. So, as we discussed, we're still waiting on HB3 revenue. You will see in this budget an estimate revenue of about $53.5 million. And at this point, we're going to defer bringing forward the compensation allotment until we have better defined figures, and we've talked about that at our workshop. And then once we do have them and more can accurately calculate the allotment, then we'll of course be setting aside 30% of that revenue gain to distribute to 75% to classroom teachers, counselors, nurses, librarians, giving a little bit greater compensation to teachers with greater than 5 years of experience, and then distributing 25% to other employees, non-administrative. What you will see in this budget is the $18.4 million compensation package that we've talked about at length at our workshops, including a 2% midpoint increase or 2%, whichever is greater. And so what you're going to be seeing here is a budget, and we're required to adopt a budget by object code on revenue and by function for appropriations, and that's what you'll see on this slide. So this one represents the general fund, and we have two funds in the general fund. One is Fund 198, which is the TRE, and then the other is Fund 199, which is the general fund. And so here you can see them broken out by fund. In this instance, Fund 198 has revenue of approximately $24 million, while appropriating out approximately $29 million in expenditures. Since we have a fund balance in the TRE fund of nearly $27 million, we are going to be using $5 million of that fund balance for additional projects in the 1920 school year. In Fund 199, we have approximately $769 million in revenue, which does include the HB3 $53.5 million estimate that Mr. Johnson has calculated, and but it does not include any HB3 allotment in the expenditures. We'll receive tax collections based upon taxable property values of about $38 billion. And as I said, this budget does include the $18.4 million in the district's 1920 compensation package. So this slide basically combines the two together. And so you'll see here that the combined revenue for the general fund is $793 million. And the total expenditures approximately $821.5 million. With a current use of fund balance of approximately $28.7 million. We will return in July or the first meeting in August to amend the state revenue on this budget with additional information on HB3 together with including the HB3 compensation allotment. This represents the proposed 1920 debt service fund budget. We discharge annual bond principal and interest from this fund. We anticipate approximately $114.4 million in local and state revenue. Our current bond principal and interest payments are approximately $102 million. However, this amount is likely to increase. We'll be selling bonds in the fall, and we'll have additional principal and interest payment on those newly issued bonds. And so we will have ample reserves and revenue to cover those new payments that are going to be forthcoming. You'll see an action item coming in the fall on the sale of bonds. Finally, we have the food service fund. You're going to see we have approximately $50.8 million in revenue with budgeted expenditures of about $52.9 million. Since we have now outsourced our food service, we'll be converting this fund from an enterprise fund to a special revenue fund this coming school year with a potential write-off of a depreciation of approximately $2.1 million. Our next steps, the last board meeting in August, which is the 27th, we'll return for another public hearing on the budgets and to adopt our tax rates. You're going to see, as a result of HB3 tax reform mandates, they have lowered the M&O tax rate from $1.06 to 99 cents per $100 valuation for maintenance and operations. And our debt service, also called interest and sinking, will remain the same at 29.2 cents for an overall tax rate of $1.28.2 cents per $100 valuation. I want to again thank the board for their support and patience as we work through HB3 and come back to you in July and or August for amendment. And finally, I'd be remiss if I did not congratulate David Johnson and the staff of the Budget Office who worked countless hours to ensure that this budget is as accurate as possible and that the tools that we use are competent. And we talked to the campuses and all the departments, and I can't thank all of them enough, so thank you. And with that, we'll turn it over to public comment.
Thank you. So yeah, at this time, we'll hear from those that requested to speak regarding the budget. First up tonight is Mr. Stephen Poole. Stephen will be followed by our final speaker on that topic, which will be Jennifer Ledbetter.
President Ramos, members of the board, and Dr. Scribner, it is interesting to see where we are tonight compared to where we were a year ago, when common knowledge was that the legislature wasn't going to come through with any more money for public schools. And they infused a lot of cash, and you're about to spend close to $33 million in employee compensation. The 15 or 16 required by the state and the 18 that you're committing tonight. That is significant investments in your employees, and it's greatly appreciated, and it's greatly needed. The state set the health insurance premiums, so for the last several years, every dollar you've been given to employees has been eaten up by the state in health insurance premiums. This is going to go a long way to address the pocketbook issues our employees face every single day. You know, it's also very nice to hear at the last budget workshop the confidence and the words of affirmation you have for your veteran teachers and your veteran employees. That's also greatly appreciated and very much needed. You know, there's always an arms race for those starting teacher salaries. You know, let's increase our starting teacher salary so we can recruit people into the district. And I heard a district just east of Houston ISD adopted a $60,000 starting teacher salary. That's great for those starting teachers, but it's the veteran teachers that we know that are the glue that binds, and your support of the veteran employees and veteran teachers in this budget is also greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for all of your hard work, and Dr. Scribner, you and your team for your hard work on this budget.
Thank you. Our second and final speaker on this topic is Jennifer Ledbetter.
President Ramos, Superintendent Scribner, and members of the board, my name is Jennifer Ledbetter, and I am a mom of an incoming McLean 7th grader and an incoming Pascal freshman. Gasp on that. I stand before you tonight to respectfully request that as you vote this evening to expand several schools of choice, that you do not forget the schools that are at the core of our pyramid. Our campuses are aging and they continue to disregard this as a great detriment of our neighborhood schools. We chose our house before we even had kids based on the reputation of the pyramid. Yet as we make the climb up through the middle school to the high school, our concerns increase each year. Pascal rides on the academic reputation, but McLean's 7th, 8th continues to fight to earn any respect. The shortfalls of the building speak louder and louder each year. Continued teacher cuts are leaving empty classrooms and in turn leading to overcrowded ones with a frantic 8-period day fueling our curriculum struggles. Our school, and I speak to McLean as a parent, is very fortunate to have engaged families through our PTA and administrators that look to make the best of the current situation. But the frustration is mounting. This is a lengthy discussion, not appropriate for this meeting, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak and simply ask on behalf of many families that we are on the radar for improvements. The neighborhood public schools are the core of the community. Thank you very much.
So with that being our final speaker on the topic, the public hearing is now closed. We will move on to recognitions at this time. Mr. Robbins, I believe you have information to share regarding this recognition.
Yes, thank you, President Ramos. The Fort Worth ISD is blessed to have many generous supporters who donate their valuable time and expertise to make our students as successful as possible. One such supporter is the Western Hills High School in the Western Hills High School community is David Hightower. Mr. Hightower has supported Western Hills athletics for years and has recently shouldered the success of the program pretty much single-handedly over the past few years. He serves as a Booster Club member and president. Among his many accomplishments are establishing community partnerships in support of Western Hills High School athletics, encouraging and supporting improvements to athletic facilities, organizing and running a baseball tournaments at the high school, including the selling of tickets to events, soliciting donations and corporate sponsorships for needed athletic and academic support, and selling T-shirts and other memorabilia each week to raise funds for equipment and necessary campus improvements. David Hightower is a one-man dynamo, beating the bushes to gain community support for the Western Hills High School baseball program. He has been doing this for years, even after his children and grandchildren graduated from Western Hills long ago. In honor of his long service, the Western Hills High School community is requesting that we officially name the Western Hills High School baseball field and complex the David Hightower Field. This request is part of our consent agenda later this evening, and we look forward to formally approving the request at that time. Mr. Hightower, would you please rise so that we can properly recognize you? And are there any guests here with you today that you would like us to recognize?
We have Coach Boylan, Coach Robiscus, our baseball coach,
Wonderful,
assistant principal, Mr. Brown,
wonderful,
and Jennifer. Right here.
wonderful. Thank you all, and thank you all for being here this evening. We appreciate you very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. At this time, we will hear public comment. Let me remind you that because of the restrictions by the Texas Open Meetings Act, board members may not engage in a verbal exchange about a subject that has not been posted. We will listen and take notes, but the board is prohibited from responding to any inquiries made during a board meeting on any topic not posted on the agenda. However, the board may reply with 1, a statement of specific factual information given in response to the inquiry, 2, recitation of existing policy in response to the inquiry, or 3, direct a person to visit with staff about the issue. While the board listens to concerns of a general nature and issues of common and individual concern, the board will not hear complaints about specific individual employees or public officers during the public comment session. Speakers shall refrain from mentioning names of individual employees or public officers during their comments. Any employee, parent, or other member of the public is asked to comply with the appropriate grievance policy to have a complaint heard pursuant to the applicable board policy. In accordance with the board policy BED local, speakers shall have a 3-minute time limit, and I ask that you please observe this rule. Furthermore, a speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another speaker. Delegations of 5 or more persons shall appoint one person to present their views before the board with the time not to exceed 5 minutes. We have 2 speakers for tonight. First will be Jennifer Quick. Jennifer will be followed by Malik Stewart.
Good evening, President, members of the board, and superintendent. And just a clarification, Malik Stewart will not be speaking. I'm here in his place. My name is Jennifer Quick, and I'm the Community Engagement Officer for Reading Partners North Texas. We wanted to come and present to you this evening just to give you a spotlight on some of our data as we wrap up another school year in Fort Worth schools. We just completed our 4th year here. We started the year with a goal of serving 225 students in the district, and we exceeded that and served 238. So that's a huge celebration for us. I know many of you are familiar with us, and one of you is even a tutor with us this year. But I wanted to give you a little overview of what we are and what we do before I give you a little more data. We work with communities to provide students with reading support using a proven individualized model. It incorporates community members who provide 45-minute lessons to students who are either 6 months to 2.5 years behind grade level. And for Fort Worth ISD, those students are in grades kindergarten through 3rd grade. In Fort Worth ISD, we're currently serving in the 4 elementary leadership academies and then George C. Clark Elementary as well. Our impact data shows that 87% of our students met or exceeded their primary literacy growth goal as they work toward reading and achieving grade level. Surveys that we give to the teachers and principals at the end of the year showed that 100% said that our program was a valuable asset to their school. And I brought with me this evening some data that breaks down our district averages and then each of the schools. So if you have one of those schools in your district, you can kind of look at that specific data. So I'll have those at the end if you don't mind me passing those out. But I think these results also, we wanted to highlight that they require an engaged core of community tutors and volunteers. And so I wanted to close tonight by offering up a call to action. So this year we were successful due to individuals, church members, TCU students, businesses that came in and supported our schools. And 98% of those tutors said that they were satisfied with their experience. So they leave with something in addition to the students that they're supporting and serving. So there's 3 main things that you can do that I want to close with. The first is visit. So come to one of our schools and see a session in action. We'd love to host you in the fall as our centers are getting up and running. The second is to volunteer and become a tutor at one of our 5 schools and see firsthand. I know Trustee Robbins serves at Como Elementary, and so he sees the impact of our program and makes that impact with the students at Como. And then finally, you can connect us to those who may be willing to come and serve in our schools, because our program is only as strong as those who we have serving with us. So that could be referring friends or a family member to tutor, or helping us connect us to your network in general. So on that closing note, just a few other little tidbits of data that will be, oh, there we go. Am I allowed to pass these?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing that. We will now recess and reconvene in the board conference room.
I don't
Okay. In accordance with the open meetings law, the board opened a meeting at 5:30 PM in the boardroom with a quorum present, recessed open session in the boardroom, and is now reconvened at 5:54 PM in open session in the board conference room with a quorum present. We move on to discussion of consent agenda items. Are there any questions concerning consent agenda items from the board? Mr. Robbins?
Thank you, President Ramos. On item 9B6, which is on page 42, has to do with the purchase of the nationally norm referenced tests. Would it be possible for us to see how our K through second grade students are doing in comparison with other students across the nation? I don't recall ever getting any feedback, and this is our only nationally norm test, I think. So would that be possible?
We definitely can do that, Mr. Robbins.
Wonderful.
No
I
problem.
look forward to that. On page 47, item 9B7, the purchase of Xerox paper. Wonder if we could get a report on how we're doing in paper consumption, maybe on a quarterly or semi-annual basis.
Sure. I think we're doing excellent. I'm sorry we didn't provide this.
We're doing better. We're doing better. We're not doing excellent.
If we were doing excellent, we wouldn't be handing out paper right now. We're doing well.
Email would be great.
We're doing well.
27,000 cases, which is 6,000 cases lower than
Wonderful.
4 years ago.
Wonderful.
That's 3 million sheets of paper less. So
Wonderful.
that's why I said excellent.
Okay.
Any,
I didn't equate it to
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's appreciated.
Thank you, Art.
Next item, 9E on page 110, the online learning agreement with UT Austin. Would it be possible, I've asked for this before, to get a review of our long-distance learning opportunities? You know, I think this would be a way where we can get some advanced courses to some schools that may not have a great variety of them and help, a more diverse group of students.
So we actually have that. We have started a draft report for you for the next school year. We're just waiting to get all of our data coming in, which would be in August. And after that, we'll start our Lone Star Governors Report and actually have your request and our special ed request as one of our top two.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Thank you. And then the last one for me is on page 151, item 9G. Which schools are participating in the pre-K program with Cook Children?
Sure. Right now, it's Logan and Walton.
Okay.
We're very excited. It's just not about the students. It's really geared to our parents and offering them resources, and not just offering, but actually making the connections to those resources, which is a very intense wraparound services for those two campuses.
Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you. That's all I have.
thank you, Mr. Robbins. Anyone else? CJ?
B10, which, let's see, page 67. Which one is the tuition and which one is for books?
Let me
I mean, those were broken down, I just wasn't sure which was which.
Ms. Evans, let me look at the backup a little bit more closely, and then we will get that answer to you very shortly, which one's the tuition and which one's the actual textbooks. I'll have it for you before you go back out.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Someone will have it for you, but I'll relay it to you.
Any other questions? Okay,
I have one, actually.
okay. Ms. Jackson?
Thank you, President Ramos. Page 95, I presume this would be you, Art, the GPS navigational.
Yes, that's 309 units for our white fleet. And it's really for efficiency, just to help us make sure we're being efficient with our stops. And then if we need to, we can actually find a child or where a bus is currently at. So there is 309 units for that.
And we've had it since 2017. Is there anything we can elaborate on that has been a save because we have it? I mean,
Certainly. One of the things that GPS information has provided for us is the ability to schedule maintenance and see kind of how much window time is being spent. So what we're trying to do is make sure all our foremen utilize the GPS data to ensure that we are efficient and we're not traveling, from one side of town, et cetera. It also allows us to be able to locate a repair person that's close by if we have an emergency or some event like that. It also provides insurance for our vehicles. So if a vehicle, and we've had one or two in the last 10 years, goes missing, we can locate it immediately. So for $249 a year per service, I think it's a good return.
okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Looks like that's all the questions from the board. This concludes discussion of agenda items. We will now recess for executive session. In the board conference room for executive session is authorized by Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code under Sections 551.072, 074, and 076.
So what does online registration mean for parents?
It means that they don't have to come to the school anymore to register, wait in line. They're able to do all the online registration with a mobile device. By the way, we have our coffee and conversation going on right now.
Oh, perfect. Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good, we're going to register your little ones for PK? Great, well, let's get started. All you have to do is go to the Fort Worth ISD website or your school's website. It's very simple, and you'll see the link. Enter your email address and a password, and you're in. Online registration is for all students, both new and returning, and is a must in order to be enrolled in Fort Worth ISD. The process for returning students is fast and should take only 5 or 10 minutes. Using your student's individual SNAP code, simply go to fwisd.org/register and confirm the information you've previously provided or update any new information. You can find your student's SNAP code on his or her final report card or by looking at your parent portal account. If you're registering for the first time, the questions are easy, and you can go back anytime you need to. When you get to the page that asks for documents, you'll have the option of scanning or uploading them. And here's a great thing, if you need to find your documents or take a break, you can sign out, save where you are, and come back to it later. One more thing, if you're registering from home and you do hit a snag, call Fort Worth ISD's Parent Information Hotline at 817-814-2070 or visit the district's website at fwisd.org/register for a list of frequently asked questions. When you're all done, hit submit.
Welcome, everyone, to this celebration of excellence. We are very excited this afternoon to welcome 6 especially accomplished Fort Worth ISD alumni to our Wall of Fame. As you can see by the faces around us, our new members are in very good company. And welcome to our honorees and to their families, friends, also our school administrators and teachers and staff who are here, and to our Fort Worth ISD board members. I know we have Ms. C.J. Evans here with us. If we could give her a round of applause. Thank you very, very much. And I believe Quentin Phillips also is here. Give him a round of applause. And I think those are our trustees who are in attendance. We thank them for being here. The men and women who we are honoring today come from all walks of life, all parts of the city, and very diverse careers and endeavors. What they share is determination, dedication, a passion for their work, and a Fort Worth ISD education. It is with great pleasure that we add them now to the Fort Worth ISD Wall of Fame. The North American tour of the hit Broadway musical Aladdin is in full swing, and listen to this. It's the genie who steals the show. That's from the Los Angeles Times. The San Diego Union Tribune says, when Major Attaway gets unbottled, you can feel the show start to levitate. And the Dallas Observer says he has mastered the role. Attaway has the audience laughing with every word. The tour began this year, but Major Attaway has played the genie on Broadway since 2016, also to rave reviews. Major Attaway grew up here in Fort Worth. He attended Alice Carlson Applied Learning Center. He attended the Applied Learning Academy for middle school, which had a stellar partner in Casa Mañana. This exposure to great theater inspired him to focus on drama and music at Arlington Heights High School. He graduated in 2005, already a regional theater star. He performed at Casa Mañana, at the Jubilee Theater, the Dallas Theater Center, and many other venues. He has performed with the Fort Worth Symphony and voiced commercials and a popular video game or two. In 2018, Major received the Irma P. Hall Illumination Award for Excellence in DFW Theater. He returns to New York and Broadway this fall to spread more magic as the genie. And if there are any tickets available, you can still catch him at Aladdin in the Dallas Summer Musicals for one more week. But today, Major Attaway is back home, and we add him to the Fort Worth ISD Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Major Attaway. And then we'll take a group picture at the end, I think. Emily Holt Crocker is a renowned choral composer, conductor, consultant, and of course, teacher. Her life in music had its roots in Fort Worth. A powerful early influence was her home church, the Church of Christ, where her 4-part harmony was sung a cappella. By age 5, she could follow the musical notation. Another musical influence was her piano teacher, Laura Helen Copeland. Miss Crocker took lessons from age 7 through high school. She began at Meadowbrook Elementary, Meadowbrook Junior High, and Eastern Hills High School, where she graduated in 1968. She received her bachelor's in music from the University of North Texas and her master's in music theory from Texas Women's University. She taught music in Texas schools for 15 years, was then hired by the world's largest print music publisher, the Hal Leonard Corporation in Milwaukee. There, she became vice president of choral publications. Ms. Crocker has composed more than 200 pieces of music. She was the senior author of 3 choral textbooks, and she also is music director emeritus of the Milwaukee Children's Choir, which she founded. The University of North Texas College of Music named her honored alumna for 2009. And in 2017, she received the Outstanding Service Award from the Texas Choral Directors Association. That same year, she retired and moved back home to Fort Worth, where she continues to compose music and consult. Let's welcome Miss Emily Holt Crocker. The astronauts who raced for the moon weren't the only ones with the right stuff. The men and women who helped them get there and back were also incredibly skilled and mentally tough. Among them, Gerald Griffin, a 1952 graduate of Arlington Heights High School. Jerry, as he's called, earned a degree in aeronautical engineering from Texas A&M. He served 4 years in the Air Force and became a systems engineer and flight controller at the U.S. Air Force Satellite Test Center. In 1964, he joined NASA, first as a Gemini flight controller and then as a flight director for all Apollo manned missions. Amazingly, he found himself working with a Pascal grad, astronaut Alan Bean. In 1970, Jerry's assignment was to lead the lunar landing for Apollo 13. But only 56 hours into that flight, an oxygen tank on board exploded. Jerry and his mission control team scrapped the moon landing plans and put everything they had into getting Apollo 13 and its 3 astronauts back to Earth safely. If you haven't already, be sure to read Bud Kennedy's story in the Star-Telegram on Jerry Griffin's fascinating NASA career. Jerry became deputy director of the Kennedy Space Center and the director of the Johnson Space Center. After retiring from NASA, he served as president and CEO of the Greater Houston Chamber of Commerce. He was also a technical advisor on Apollo 13 and other films. His many awards include NASA's Distinguished Service Medal and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which was awarded to the Apollo 13 mission operations team for what has been called NASA's finest hour. Let's celebrate Mr. Jerry Griffin. Congratulations to you. Mrs. Opal Lee is a force of good. She attended Cooper Street Elementary and graduated from I.M. Terrell High School in 1943. She married, had 4 children, and then went back to school. She earned her Bachelor of Arts from Wiley College and her Master's in Counseling and Guidance from the University of North Texas. She taught at Amanda McCoy Elementary and then served as a counselor until she retired from Fort Worth ISD in 1977. And she was just getting started. Ms. Lee founded the Community Food Bank and co-founded Citizens Concerned with Human Dignity to help low-income families find housing. She was on the board of the local Habitat for Humanity and Unity Unlimited. She co-founded the Tarrant County Black Historical and Genealogical Society, and she's also a founding member of the Community Food Bank. And the list goes on. At 93, she's still adding to that list. 92. And a half. Thank you, Opal. I was rounding up. Earlier this year, there was a ribbon cutting for Opal's Farm, a program based on her vision to provide fresh produce to residents of the United Riverside neighborhood. And each year, Opal Lee strives to make Fort Worth Juneteenth celebration bigger than the year before. She made national news in recent years for her symbolic walks to Washington to convince Congress and the President to declare Juneteenth a national holiday, a cause she continues to push for. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Opal Lee. I Am Terrell High School has turned out a remarkable number of creative, critically acclaimed musicians. We're honoring one of them today, the late Dewey Redman. He was born in 1931 and at the age of 13 started playing clarinet at church. He continued playing in the band at I Am Terrell, where his bandmates included Ornette Coleman and King Curtis Ousley, both here on our Wall of Fame. Mr. Redman earned his bachelor's degree in industrial arts at Prairie View A&M and switched from clarinet to saxophone. He served in the Army, taught school, while getting his master's in education at the University of North Texas. In 1959, he moved to California to pursue music full-time. One night, in a San Francisco jazz club, he played to an audience that included John Coltrane. They ended up playing sessions together, and Mr. Redman said he learned at every opportunity from the great Coltrane. In 1967, Mr. Redman moved to New York and reunited with Ornette Coleman. They performed together for the next 7 years. Mr. Redman continued to play for 30 more years. He recorded with his son, Joshua Redman, also an acclaimed saxophonist. He performed at a tribute to Ornette Coleman at Lincoln Center in 2004. And he played his final concert in 2006, just days before his death. Representing the Redman family is Chris Walk, the Fort Worth ISD Executive Director of Visual and Performing Arts. Let's please recognize Joshua Redman. Burl Yarbrough association with Texas League Baseball goes back to childhood. He grew up following the Dallas-Fort Worth Spurs. The minor league team played at Turnpike Stadium in Arlington from 1965 to 1971. But never in Burl's young mind did he expect to one day be the president of one of the premier teams in the league, the San Antonio Missions. Burl attended Wycliffe Elementary School and Leonard Middle School. He graduated from Western Hills High School in 1975. He earned his bachelor's in marketing from the University of Texas at Arlington and a master's in sports administration from St. Thomas University in Miami. He joined the Missions in 1987 as a general manager, and in 1998 was named president of the organization. He's still there, still doing what he loves. During his tenure, the Missions have won 6 Texas League championships. He is a 4-time Texas League Executive of the Year. And in 2016, he was named Texas League Hall of Famer, the league's highest honor. This is his 32nd season with the Missions, and it's a big one. Just last year, the Missions advanced from AA ball to AAA ball. So how are we doing, Burl? We having a good year? Thumbs up. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Burl Yarbrough. While the Wall of Fame honors extraordinary alumni, it also says to our students that you can do it. You can do it too, with dedication, with courage, respect and connection with your teachers and mentors. And we thank each one of you for being here, not only to recognize these new Wall of Famers, but also for sending the message to our students that investing in our students is the best investment that we can make, because they too can grow up and do great things like these Wall of Famers. We thank all of you for coming here. We thank Major Attaway, Emily Holt Crocker, Gerald Griffin, Opal Lee, the late Dewey Redmond, Burl Yarbrough for making your district, our district, very, very proud. Thank you to all of you.
Today I'm doing a presentation on the spare parts story from the time when I was in high school, and we're sharing that with the STEM camp students in the hopes of convincing them to stay in school, primarily to pursue a career in education. The idea came from the teachers to go with that competition. How we came up to solving it, that was really the 4 of us that kind of asked a lot of questions to a lot of different people. If we sign up on the harder level, if we lose, we're going to lose against a bunch of colleges. And it's going to be easier for us to go back home and say, hey, we lost because we competed against a bunch of colleges, right?
Trabajó muy duro para poder crear un robot. Nos esforzamos, como ya lo había dicho.
Even though I got deported, it couldn't take my education away. I still got that.
For me, Oscar Vasquez is like a hero.
Education is a lot more important than you realize. I see how I live nowadays, and I see how my friends that didn't go to college live nowadays. And I see a big difference.
We got to listen to a very inspiring story for students who are immigrant students and how important education is for their future.
The differences that teachers make every day is often goes unseen.
We got their interest, not only that he's an immigrant, but how much success he's had, and he signed all our students' novels, and so that they were excited.
Whatever it is that you feel is preparing you for the future, continue to do that. Surround yourself with good people, and don't forget where you came from.
Well, it's an honor for me to welcome you to Antietam National Battlefield. We have 2,380 acres here of prime, pristine battlefield.
So I would say the topography, I would change. 1 second you have these large hills, next it's more of a slope.
All summer long, Robert E. Lee had bested the Union Army. He's got some option. He's 30 miles south of Washington, D.C. He's got the capital of the United States within his grasp.
Well, I feel like I could actually imagine the people and like how it was in action.
This is part of our annual U.S. Military History Staff Ride. And the Staff Ride is a vehicle we use to get our young people to learn and engage in our beautiful American history.
Here is my hero of the Civil War, Jonathan Letterman. Remember that, put it in your brain. Father of battlefield medicine.
What's going through my mind is that I get to see everything, how it was. It's preserved well. We get to see all the buildings, where the posts were at, and that I feel that it's an awesome way to learn.
I feel like we take a lot of things for granted. We don't actually realize how much many people put in so much effort into this country.
In 1799, they began building the armory and the arsenal. This monument represents the position of the original firehouse. You've heard of Lewis and Clark. Well, Meriwether Lewis came here to pick up his camping supplies. That included Harper's Ferry rifles.
John Brown and 3 of his sons moved there to advance the cause of abolition.
He believed in the Old Testament, an eye for an eye.
John Brown came in and captured all the guns and got hostages, and then went to the firehouse where they were then defeated.
10 were killed on the raid, 7 were captured and executed, and 5 got away on the John Brown raid. Today, it's a visitor center.
The room above you is called the formal parlor, meant for a space for Washington to have meetings with his guests such as Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, James Madison.
Last year, coming back from the presidency, we had 677 overnight stays.
The house is amazing.
I think that George Washington lives a better life than I did.
It'd be really nice to live here with your family, especially George Washington. He was gone for many years in the Revolutionary War. And just to come back to this nice place with your family, it's something that not a lot of people have.
Mush cakes, same as every other common person does eat around here. Slave people food for the most part, but of course he don't like to be associated with General Washington, president of these here United Americas, eating common people food, mush cakes.
But I can tell what she was saying, the kids were actually receiving that very well. When they saw the slave quarters and when they saw the different things that they had not seen in the history books, I think those are things that to me is what we call experiential learning. When you're actually there on the ground and looking at these things, that's just a different perspective you'll never see in the classroom or in the history books.
There are 317 slaves that live and work upon this estate.
Just realizing that 200, 300 years ago, people of my color, people of my ethnicity were here trying to get their freedom, trying to get their rights.
Rashko Pralica, born 1908, Serbian, killed by the Ustasha, 1942. Anda Pralica, born 1899, Serbian, killed by the Ustasha, 1942.
Like really shocking experience to actually see like the pictures and the artifacts that they had.
And dad, sick man, born 1942, Serbian, child, died 1942.
Thank you for taking time to visit with me. I appreciate it very much.
The cadets here are enrolled in our Honors U.S. Military History program. We appreciate you taking time out of a busy schedule to share some insights of your public service.
I'm the only Texas Republican woman who's ever served in Congress. There are a lot of people, there are a lot of you that could do this. Our work day, it starts usually earlier than this. Today I go into a defense subcommittee, a hearing. The Secretary of Defense is going to testify.
Congratulations. It's going to be a really great opportunity for you to be able to further your career, starting off with NJROTC and then moving on. My primary goal on the Armed Services Commission was obviously to make sure that our military personnel had everything they needed to be successful on any missions they were deployed.
Coming here and meeting with the representatives was getting to learn how they got to where they are now
that this wasn't their first choice of what they're going to do for the rest of their lives.
Each state gets to send 2 statues to the Capitol.
It's really impressive. See all of this sculptures and all the work put into it.
So every statue you see here in the Capitol, in the Rotunda, is a former president. The reason why it's my favorite right here is this slab right here with granite is actually a piece of the Berlin Wall.
This national park that I work for has close to 35 million visitors coming to it every year. And these memorials are places where they can come and reflect on the American history that's taken place over 200 years.
You get to realize how many people actually died. Instead of like seeing a number, you get to see all of the names.
407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. And the whole theme to the memorial focuses on Lincoln wanting to keep the nation together. The memorial is designed after one of Jefferson's favorite pieces.
(6:34 p.m.) in the boardroom with a quorum present. Moving on to accepting consent agenda. Do I have a motion accepting consent agenda items? I have a motion by Trustee Jackson, a second by Trustee Robbins. Any discussion? No discussion. Please move to vote. Motion passes 7-4 and 0 against. No items were removed on action on consent agenda. Move on to 14B, personnel. I believe Trustee Evans, we have a motion for this evening's personnel appointment.
Yes, I move to appoint Lisa Castillo to Executive Director of Choice and Enrichment Program as recommended by the superintendent.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Trustee Evans, a second by Trustee Luevanos. Any discussion? No discussion. Please move to vote. Motion passes 7-4 and 0 against. I believe Trustee Paz, you have the next motion.
Yes. I would like to enthusiastically move to appoint Yvonne Huizar Garcia to the position of Business Operations Manager 3 as recommended by the superintendent.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Trustee Paz, a second by Mr. Robbins. Any discussion? Looks like no discussion. Please move to vote. Motion passes 7-4 and 0 against. Dr. Scribner, would you like to make the announcements?
Yes, we are. We're very pleased that we're adding 2 additional highly regarded administrators to our team, both an executive director of choice and enrichment programs as well as manager 3 business operations, as stated by the board. They both, in fact, are on district business tonight, and we're unable to be here because they're those kind of employees. We're very, very proud to bring them on board and appreciate the board's support.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. Moving on to action items 15A, B, and C, no action will be required. So we'll be moving on to 15D, which is adoption of proposed 2019-2020 budgets for the General Fund, Debt Service Fund, and Child Nutrition. Do I have a motion? I have a motion by Trustee Jackson, a second by Mr. Robbins. Looks like we have discussion. Trustee Luevanos.
Thank you, President Jackson. Sorry, President Ramos.
It's okay.
So used to. So, well, it's important to invest in our goals. How is this new budget going to achieve our goal of literacy by, we are every morning up to my pin of 2025. How are we getting there, and how this new budget is going to help us to get there?
Well, I would like to share that for early literacy, when we are looking at our departments and our department budgets, we've actually increased just that department alone under Dr. Mixon about $1.6 million in the budget for this year. We're looking at about 4.9 total. That doesn't, of course, include our campus budgets that support them individually. We also have increased our marketing campaign this year. Our communications department, our parent engagement has done a tremendous job to not only have our pre-K enrollment increase, but our kinder enrollment. We know kinder is not a requirement in the state of Texas, so we have not only gone after our pre-K students for next year, but our kinder students as well, and we're seeing a very steady increase. We have taken and looked at our past trend history for data where we had still wait lists for our pre-K, and we have invested some additional pre-K units that have included furniture, resources, materials. And then, of course, you just on our consent agenda item on B9 with our map reading that was passed, that is very new to us this year. We're very excited. It's a norm reference literacy, and it's for K through 3. So this is a screening tool for us to use for our early literacy that we've not had in the past as well. And then, of course, our NIHouse that we have brought before the board for approval, we will continue in that direction.
Also, Trustee Luevanos, want to share with you, and working with the principals in C&I department, our new Pearson adoption that's coming in. We had recently had a literacy conference with a PPLE. Principals had access, and they were very excited about the new phonics program that Pearson has, and it also bundles well with the NIHouse. So principals have access and choice in looking at the software that they have accessible to them, and so we will continue these trainings through the flex days as well with the teachers and administrators. So we will continue to support our campus principals with both bilingual resources that are available in English and Spanish.
Welcome, Trustee Paz.
Thank you very much, President Ramos. So first of all, I would like to start by commending Elsie and the budget team. This process that we've had this year for just meeting and having workshops around the budget and the presentations that you have given have been some of the most thorough that we've received in the 6 years that I've been on the board, which today is my anniversary of when I was first sworn in. So I am very grateful for you and all of the time that you and your team have put into this. And I would like to, and this is not, my comments that are about to come have no bearing on you or your team. And they're not, I know they're going to be perceived as negative, but they are not intended to be. It's just the nature of the game when you're trying to focus on outcomes. So one of the things that I have kind of struggled with through this process has been, just like Mr. Luebanos just, his question was, how is this going to help us achieve our literacy goals? I have still not seen any direct correlations to how, I haven't had an explanation for how this is going to help us achieve our board adopted goals. And, we've had a lot of kind of roundabout conversations, but we are, as we are trying to change our board behaviors, that means that we need to be having more intentional conversations that are directly tied to student outcome goals, and that is early literacy, middle years math, college and career readiness. And so we mentioned it here and there, and we've talked about it, but this board as a whole spends very little time actually talking about our student outcome goals in our board meetings. And this is more just what I kind of hope for our board over the next few years, is that we are able to start having more intentional conversations about these big items, our budget. How does this tie to our goals? And I've seen, because this is not just about the things that we are approving along with this budget, but also the cuts that come along with this budget. And just today I learned of, a very, getting down to the micro level, a dedicated teacher in a high school where she's made an impact for many, many years, who's buried her daughter this week, and just finding out that her position might not be there next year because of some of these cuts. And understanding how that decision ties to increased student outcomes. And I'm going to vote to approve the budget, but I do so with some hesitancy, not because I think that it's a bad budget or anything like that. I just, as we move forward through this year and we start having more workshops and we're talking more, and we go through our monthly budget amendments and we're making decisions throughout this year, I would personally like to see more of that direct lines being drawn to how does this impact student achievement outcome goals. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like we have no more discussion, so we have again a motion by Trustee Jackson and a second by Mr. Robbins. Looks like no more discussion. Please move the vote. Motion passes 7-4 and 0 against. Moving on to 15E, approve renewal of Eduphoria Suite and related services. Do I have a motion? I have a motion by Trustee Paz and a second by Trustee Evans. Any discussion? Looks like no discussion. Please move the vote. Motion passes 7-4 and 0 against. We are at 16 comments by board members and or superintendent on current district activities and or announcements. I understand we have some special guests in the room, and Trustee Jackson, it's on you, my friend.
Thank you, President Ramos. In honor of Dr. T.A. Sims and Principal Stephen Maddock, I'm thrilled to recognize this group of individuals. Dr. Sims and Stephen Maddock were members of the team of the faculty, staff, and community who approved the naming and worked so hard for the naming of the David K. Sellers Music Room to be named the Troy Edmond Music Hall. And I want to give just a little brief background of Troy Nell Pope Edmond, who is a native of Fort Worth, Texas, and a graduate of Dunbar High School class of 1973. Troy Nell was a member of the performing chorus at the Dunbar Junior High School. Her journey began in 1977 as a music therapist in which she worked with students of varying degrees of challenges. Troy Nell graduated from East Texas State University with a bachelor's degree in music education. While working for Fort Worth ISD, Ms. Edmond was noted for the Ronald McDonald House Ambassadors Club, ACE, performed for Duchess Sarah Ferguson of York, PTA programs, annual Forest Hill tree lighting celebrations, state and national conferences, holiday performances in the city of Fort Worth, school board meetings, just like this one, I bet, city council meetings, country clubs, awards in UIL Music Memory, and the Elementary Music Festival. Her affiliations include Texas Music Educators Association, Fort Worth Education Association, Texas State Teachers Association, National Education Association, and Delta Sigma Theta Public Service Sorority. Her achievements include, and I'm sure these aren't all of them, Outstanding Young Women of America, Teacher of the Year, Barrett H. Friedman Chair for Teaching Excellence in Performing Arts, Music Mentor, Music Quadrant Leader, and Instructor for Bass Performance Hall Summer Institute. We're very honored to have you here, and you know, they say people are the company they keep. By looking at the company you keep, wow. Please stand up and let us give you a hand. I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you like to say a couple of words? How about putting you on the spot there?
Good evening, and Board President Ramos, Superintendent Scribner, to all of the Board of Trustees, and to all of my wonderful supporters who are here. I have to say this, coming down here with this, my dad was a Baptist preacher, and he was a pastor for 50 years, and his theory was never leave home without a sermon. So I don't have a sermon, but I did have a few notes of thank you for this evening. I'm profoundly appreciative, grateful, humbled by this honor that has been bestowed upon me. And I thank you for accepting Superintendent Scribner and Board. I thank you for accepting the recommendation of Principal Maddock and Board Member Sims in making this possible. This is such a culmination to a journey of 42 years in education, 37 of those being in Fort Worth ISD. So thank you so very, very much. And my accomplishments and successes as an educator was not an expedition of solitude. I have my biological family with me this evening. Please stand. Husband, son, mother, brother, and 2 sisters. I have my David K. Sellers family, past and present, here with me on this evening. And I have my sorority family with me, the members of the Fort Worth Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Again, President Ramos, Superintendent Scribner, and Board, thank you so very, very much for this honor, and thank you for the accommodation that you did on this evening. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you to the staff for catching this on our behalf, and then Trustee Jackson for doing the honors. Wish we could end every single board meeting this way. With that, looks like we have no other comments from our board. This meeting is adjourned.